I guess it'd help if I got my mic fixed up. So, first time going live. I don't even really have anything to talk about. To be honest, I kind of just decided to do this because I happen to be looking at my YouTube stats and stuff, anyways. And I thought, you know what? Like, I've never done live. Let's just roll with it. So, we'll see what happens if anybody jumps in, has any questions. If not, I'm going to just sit here and kind of hang out for a little bit while this is happening. I have been doing a lot of videos lately about the peptide stuff. So glad to answer any questions that anybody has that jumps in for the peptide questions and the ipamorelins and the CJCs and whatnot. Glad to answer anything about my experience through that. I am now 7 months in on the peptides. Tell you what, this camera is making me look clean. I may need to shave a little bit, but like my beard says that I look like I'm 46, but I think my skin looks like I'm maybe 36 as I'm sitting here kind of looking at it. Huh. Maybe the peptides are working. Maybe I've been looking at the wrong thing. I've been having all these problems with these peptides and the injections and going through these cycles that I've put on weight and haven't really put on any muscle, but maybe I've been looking at the wrong thing. Maybe it should have been, do I look younger? I think I look younger. You know, what's funny is sometimes, and it happens more a lot now that I'm in my mid 40s, where I'm going through that thing where I keep seeing my dad in pictures that are actually pictures of me. It's not, it's not fun. There's been several pictures actually that me and my wife would take together. Like we'd be out somewhere just, on a date night or whatever. And she'll take like a picture because we always kind of take that pre-date picture. And there's been several times over the last couple of months where I'm just like, you got to delete that because it looks like you're on a date with my dad. My dad is a handsome guy, but like nobody wants that. You know, what's funny is, my dad being handsome. I remember my dad being handsome from the time that I was like a kid. He always had like a great mustache. Like I always knew my dad had a great mustache. And he's been married multiple times. So he's done, he never had any problems finding somebody to marry. But I remember like one time at my house, I had a couple of my cousins over, girl cousins that were around the same age as me. And I remember them telling me at the time how good looking my dad was. And I was so shocked by that. I remember later telling my dad that I was like, hey, you're not going to believe this, but they said you're handsome. Like they said you're a good looking guy. I think he may have known it already. So anyways, that's a story about handsome dads. Maybe it's just my ring light. Maybe it's just my new Mac that I got. Something's making me look taut. So I'm trying to figure out on this because I've never done the Go Live thing. I don't see where I can actually like see who's in the chat. It says there's a couple of people in here. So anyways, whoever you are, thanks for stopping by and listening to me ramble. Usually what happens is I'm online late like this because I work a regular job in tech. And so this is actually my basement that I'm in right now because I've been relegated to my office being in my basement for reasons that I don't quite understand. I've got a room upstairs, a bedroom upstairs that my 19-year-old, like he's hardly ever home anymore. In fact, he's not here most of the time. And some part of me is just like, hey, thanks for the thumbs up. Some part of me is like, hey, can I just like have that room and not be down here in this basement? So like right now I'm not wearing socks. And I bet probably 2 or 3 times a day, there would come a point where I'll go like, oh, there's something crawling on my foot. And there's not, but it's just because I'm sitting in a basement. It makes me feel like something. So anyways, I work in tech throughout the day, at night. So I've actually got a website that I started about 1.5 years ago. It's like a health and fitness website where I do reviews of stuff. And it's just during COVID, I got certified as a personal trainer. I didn't really have any intentions of training people as a personal trainer, but I wanted the extra knowledge. And I wanted to, like when friends and family asked me for stuff, I wanted to be able to say, here's what I think. And here's a little bit of sort of knowledge, education behind it. So I got certified back. And so I ended up starting a website, which has actually done pretty good. If you haven't already, it's on all of my, my profile stuff here, fitnessshizniss.com. Stupid name, cool site. And so at night, I spend a lot of my time writing articles for that, or auditing and reviewing articles for that. And the site's done really well. A lot of that is I ended up doing, um, hey, what's up, Rex? Uh, so I started doing the website and doing affiliate sales through the website last year. So that would have been in April of 2022, and the site's done really well. Like I think that you always see these weird things about people making money online about like blogs and stuff like that. And so I actually ended up taking a course online, and I thought, you know what, I'm probably burning up this $1,000 or whatever, but I kind of thought maybe there was something there, and it's done. So a lot of my times at night, what I'm doing is while I'm online, I'm doing one of a few things. One is I'm either working on my website and doing audits and writing articles for my blog and doing those kind of things. Or so recently I also got admitted, or that sounds weird, I also got brought into the Amazon influencers program. So I also do reviews on products that get posted to Amazon. And so right now, so like sellers are like sending me stuff, brands are sending me stuff to review. So I spend a lot of my time at night making those videos and doing that kind of thing. The other thing that I enjoy doing, which my wife, when I mention this, makes fun of me for this. Actually, a lot of people make fun of me for this. Is so I'm still a big sports card guy. Like COVID reintroduced me to sports cards, and so I don't know if anybody that watches this is familiar with the concept of like sports card breaks, case breaks, or box breaks. So like, oh, the peptide stuff. I'll get to some of that stuff here in just a second, Rex. I actually have some thoughts on that as well. Another follow up for that. Thank you for that. So I've been doing the sports card case breaks lately. That's where you just you buy a team. So like for me, since I'm from St. Louis, I buy St. Louis Cardinals, and so they open up these boxes or cases of sports cards. And so if I have the Cardinals, I don't get any other cards except for Cardinals. So I do a lot of. There's like a guy that I watch predominantly at night. Um, the peptide things has been interesting because I made another update today talking about my new scan and some of the things. But, one of the things that struck me actually as I was making that video was I made a comparison at one point. I've actually still got it here. That when I started this peptide journey thing, uh, I was at 121 pounds of lean muscle mass. And I mentioned on that video that I made how I had, before that, my last scan, I was at 112.7. So from that scan to whenever I started this process, I had actually gained almost 10 pounds of muscle. And so that was a 9-month period. So I realized there that during a 9-month period, I gained almost 10 pounds of muscle without peptides. That was just me just working hard. Now, granted, my body fat percentage went up from 14 to 21. So I added a lot of other stuff there too. But from a muscle standpoint, I added in 9 pounds of muscle during those 9 months. And I also mentioned that during this process, these 7 months of this peptides, that basically where I'm at right now is almost exactly where I was whenever I started. I'm up about 3 pounds of muscle, not nearly what it was whenever I started this. Whenever I had 9, I had a 9. So I was able to add on 3 times as much muscle prior to starting this peptide thing, just on my own volition and on my own will and based off of my own plans or whatever, versus the 3 pounds over these current 7 months. And it may end up being the full 9 months. And so while I was making that video today, it struck me that, like, man, like, I relied so much on these peptides to do something for me. And when I look back at what I did prior to this process, I was able to do a lot of that on my own. And somebody actually left a comment on my video today, and it really kind of made me think. And I think that there is some validity to that. I think I relied on these peptides too much to do something that they weren't supposed to do. I think that I got lazy with them because even if you put the peptides aside, I don't think the peptides stop me from adding muscle, right? Like the fact that I haven't hardly added any muscle, I think that if I blame that on the peptides, that's stupid. And so if I was able to build that much muscle without it, and I didn't add that much with it, then that means that I think I fell short of putting the effort into this process that I should have put in. And so something I've said a lot from the beginning of this is that I'm very cynical about peptides and if they actually work and some things like that. But that didn't stop me from probably putting too much faith in them during this process. You know, I'm making these videos and I'm like, I'm just this cynical guy that's not sure it works. But then whenever sort of my daily routines would kind of come in and out, I think that my action was more of that of somebody who not only believed that they worked, but was putting all of his faith in them being a magic pill or a miracle drug or whatever. So, you know, over the last couple of days, especially once I got this scan, um, you know, it made me kind of realize that maybe I have fallen short in this more than I intended to. So, um, so Rex, you've been on it for 2 months. So this is the 5 meg and the 9. Yeah, on the, so I'm assuming that's probably the blend, right? Is this something that you're doing on your own? Not seeing much results, but you're only 2 months in, right? So, and that was one of the things that whenever I started doing these peptides that I was confident in, and this is why during my first cycle, I was very cautious what I was going to expect from the peptides because everywhere that I looked, the one thing that I believed to be true in the beginning was that if something was going to happen with the peptides, then that first cycle was just a foundation building cycle. I had zero expectations of anything good happening during that cycle. So, you know, you only being 2 months in, if that is true, what I just said, and I'm not making it up, that's just what I saw others saying about the first cycle, then you're probably fine. I think it's just that if peptides work, it is a foundation building cycle. There are, you know, part of the reason that I jumped into this whole stupid thing was that a lot of the TikTok ads, there was one specifically that sort of pissed me off. And it was something like, you know, a clinic guy was interviewing this other guy. And he was like, he lost 10 pounds in like 7 days on these peptides. And I was just kind of like, horse sh, you know. I think that the reality is that you have to be patient during that, just like any other supplement you take, honestly, right? Like creatine doesn't really kick. I mean, creatine is scientifically proven for all sorts of benefits, but you know it's not going to do much within 7 days, right? Or really, it takes time. Or even like TRT, right? So I've been on TRT since 2019. Like my doctor told me back then, like don't expect anything, you know, for a while. And so I think the peptides are no different. So yeah, doctor supervision. So it's, you know, it's interesting you mentioned the doctor supervision thing because um, so I am too, right? So I go to a men's wellness clinic or health clinic or whatever you want to call it. It's the place where I started doing, got my TRT from, that does all my blood work and my panels and whatnot. And so they had recommended these peptides to me probably a year ago, and I uh, passed on doing them. But what's been interesting to me is that a lot of the comments, which, and I say this on my last couple of videos, like honestly, the comments in these things have made me think more about what I'm doing in the process and all that kind of stuff, probably more than any of the videos that I found online. So I really appreciate people that just jump in and like, and even just hear Rex. I appreciate this conversation. Um, what surprised me is that in those comments, how many people, and maybe I'm lucky that I'm going to a doctor. I don't know. How many people don't seem to know, you know, there's a lot of dosing questions. There's a lot of, hey, if I have this, how much should I be reconstituting? Or, you know, and there's several that have come straight out and just said, I'm not doing it, doctor. I'm just doing this on my own. You know, it's been a bit of an eye opener to me to see how many people are doing this journey. You know, this has been frustrating for me, and I've had my own series of questions. And like you, I've got a doctor that I can send messages to, and it's still been confusing. I think that if I didn't have that doctor resource to at least give me some sort of answers, I bet it is extremely confusing for those that are just winging it. I know that there's an app. I saw several people mentioning an app called Calc Pep, I think is, or Pep Calp. It's like a $6 app on the App Store. And it's like basically says you put in your numbers for like how much meg you've got of whatever the thing is. And it tells you how much to like reconstitute and whatever. And apparently it's quite a popular app because nobody, if you don't have a doctor, how are you supposed to know? It's just like you're basically guessing it. And actually, some of the people on the comments have said, like, I'm basically guessing it over here. So I also have the doctor too. You know, it was interesting, the doctor thing. And I'll mention that I'll get on the energy thing here in just a second. So whenever I first started going to the doctor about the peptide thing, or about hormones just in general. So this was back in like uh 2017, maybe 2018. I remember going to my doctor about testosterone tests. And so my first test that I did with testosterone, he ran it, but like I could tell he didn't know what he was looking for. So he ran it and he came back with a number and it was like 300 or something like that, maybe like 350. And so what he did at the time is he put me on a single dose, 200 meg of testosterone per week or per month. So like like one vial per month, and I didn't know any different, so I did it. And I remember going to the gym not long after that, and I told the guy, I was just like, "Hey, I'm on testosterone," because he had mentioned it before. He's like, "Well, what's your dosing?" And I was like, 200 a month, and he's like, "What? That's not how this works." So he said, "Look, you need to go to somebody that actually deals with this stuff." He said, "Do you know like what your estrogen levels are? Because like that plays a part in." And I said, "I have no idea." So the next time I actually went back to my doctor, I said, "Can you also test for estrogen?" And he goes, "I swear to God," he goes, "I don't. And if I did, I wouldn't even know what to do with that information." So that's my general like. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I got to go somewhere else. So that's why I ended up going to the men's clinic and doing that. And what was interesting was, going to the men's clinic and getting these kind of answers. My numbers in between that time frame from whenever I first went to my doctor and had that 350 number, by the time I went to the men's clinic and I did uh, the new blood panel, it had dropped down to like under 300. So it was even decreasing during that year and a half or 2 years or whatever it was for that. So, it ended up being quite a process. Now, whenever I first started doing the TRT, I wasn't very consistent with it because of the needles. Like, I had a really hard time. So I do all of my own injections. They first gave me one and I was kind of spoiled. She gave me, it was like this kind of like, I probably should put my hand like that. They gave me a pretty large size, sort of round, fat tube of the TRT. And she said that all I had to do, she's like, it basically injects itself. So she said, you put it on the leg or wherever you're doing it, and it's like, bat, bat. And then it's like done. And it was awesome. Like I felt nothing whatsoever. And then you have to throw this giant tube away whenever you're done. So I had like 2 or 3 of those, but my insurance didn't cover those. So I got kind of spoiled. And then I went right into, what does that say? No offense to anyone. Should I be seeing a male? Man, I tell you what, knowledge is knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just one of those things that mine is a lady. And I've seen several ladies like on TikTok that do it. I just think it's a knowledge thing, right? And whoever you feel like you can talk to and trust and feel comfortable with, I would even worry about the other part of it. 'Cause there's a lot of male gynecologists, you know what I mean? Like, and they're probably great at gynecology, so I wouldn't worry about who if it's male or female. Um, so whenever I started, part of the reason that I was very inconsistent with the TRT in the beginning was the needles. I mean, it's just it. I've never been a big medical guy, anyways, and there's been a lot of times where I should have went to like doctors and I didn't go just because I'm very sort of adverse to doing that kind of thing. So it was really hard for me to sort of, I mean, even still today, I started this in 2019. Every single week, whenever I do my TRT, it's a psych out for me. Like I have to go through a certain process or I can't do the TRT. So my current process is I do it, I prep everything. I go to the bathroom, I start prepping all of my stuff. I turn the shower on actually before I start prepping because I just need some noise going in the background. And so once the shower is running and it's warming up, I do the prepping. And as I'm doing the prepping, if I open up a package, I have to throw that package away before I can get to the next step. Like I have to just like keep going through this process. My area has to be clean or it psychs me out. So once I get it all done, then I take my needle and my alcohol pad into the shower with me and I get the water real hot so that it takes my attention off of what I'm about to do to my butt cheek. And I have to get up to a certain temperature, and I have to make sure that a lot of the water is hitting me so I can feel that. Every single week when I do these testosterone injections, even though I've been doing them for now 4 years, I have to I have to mentally put myself in a place that like, okay, I can actually do this and I'll do it and it's fine. And I've never really had any problems. Like, there's been one time where Not a lot of blood, but more than usual, kind of came out and it just trickled down my leg a little bit. But it's usually like nothing, especially in the butt, like hardly any pain whatsoever. Not even I was doing it in my upper thigh for the first couple of years. And I just decided to try the butt just to kind of see. And I actually like it. So the phrase I was almost I like it in, I like it in the butt better. But that's not what so I do like it there though better. Screw it, whatever. No, don't say screw it. No, don't. Okay. So the backside is just a much easier spot for me. So I haven't done the pellet. Um, it was offered to me, if I remember right. Again, this was 4 years ago, so slightly vague memory, but I think it was offered to me at that time. And for whatever reason, I think that I felt like it was just a better option for me to be able to do the injections. And I don't know why, something about the pellet under the skin thing, maybe it freaked me out. I don't know. I did just talk to somebody this past week, and I can't remember who it was that is doing the pellet, and they seem to love it. But haven't really done it yet. You know, the TRT for me though was the beginning of this whole process, you know, because I took pretty good care of my body. So, you know, I'm 46 now. I didn't really drink until I was 40. Like I had never been drunk until probably 43. Like I've done a pretty good job of never really did hard drugs. Uh, you know, I've been a good boy generally. So, you know, doing some of this other stuff, some of this random injectables and things like that. It started with TRT, and I know TRT is safe, but that's after a couple years of that. That's whenever I kind of started thinking about like what am I willing to do to my body to see what I can get out of it? Like what am I willing to put in it is probably what I should say. And so that's why the peptide thing also kind of intrigued me because I got to a point where I was already thinking like, you know what, I would do like HGH. I think if it was done right, because like I think that I'm probably full of it. I think that's probably me thinking I'm so healthy I can handle anything is probably probably how a lot of people die. Uh, but like maybe I got a little bit too much bravado as far as feeling like I can handle it. But it was sort of just like my introduction that the TRT was to there's other stuff out there. Um, and if you do it right, then perhaps there's benefit. I would do more stuff, I think, at this point. I would do HGH at this point. In fact, my doctor offered me a low dose HGH whenever I started telling her about my symptoms and the side effects that I was having. She offered that and I declined it for now. But you know, I may end up doing it. I did talk to another uh, lab today or an online group called Transcend, I think it was the name of it. And I'd seen an ad of theirs scrolling through like Facebook. And so I reached out to them and I did a call with them today. And they mentioned like the tesamorelin. They said, well, maybe that's an option for you. So that's why I mentioned that on my video today was it is intriguing a bit. Their pricing was way more than my current place is. But here's what was interesting too. I'll kind of wrap this up. I appreciate you three hanging in there, and Rex, I appreciate the questions. If you haven't already, please hit that like. Does that? I don't even know if that does anything. Thank you for that. Here's what I did notice. Somebody hit it early on, and the number went from 1 to 4. So you know, do you use an online or in-person clinic? So mine is an in-person, but it's like an hour from me. So I do have they also have an online portal where I can send them messages and oh man, oh yeah. Hey, who's taking my like away? Who's playing with the likes? You know that's playing with my heart. Uh so mine is an in person, but I only go like twice a year. And that's really to kind of do like blood panels and make sure kind of see where the numbers are at and see if I need to make any adjustments. Um but because they have the online portal, I can send questions in. Like I sent some questions in yesterday about, hey, I'm still having some of these side effects. I asked if there was another lab that we could select from, and they got back with me like same day. So it's nice. But for my blood work and all that stuff, I actually have to go and do that stuff in person. Um, you know what I found to be interesting is on my videos that I'm making here about the peptides, uh, because of the troubles that I've had with the peptides, a lot of people in the comments have said maybe my stuff is bunk. Maybe the place I'm getting it from is no good. Uh, Look, the place I'm getting it from is called South Lake Compounding Pharmacy, and that's actually who my clinic is ordering them from. And so I've researched this company, and they are from everything that I see, a legitimate company. What I thought was actually interesting is whenever I was talking to the guy from Transcend today, which is another lab that I don't do any business with, but I was sort of reaching out to see what was out there. I asked him, where do they get theirs from? And he said, well, where do you get yours from? And I said, mine comes from a place called South Lake Compounding Pharmacy. And he says, well, that's interesting because we actually get a lot of our stuff from them too. And so I thought that was because of so many comments, valid comments, that maybe my stuff is not any good. Is HA boofable? So you gotta boof it. Type what boofable means. I'm not gonna Google it. Just gotta boof it. I'd love to boof it. I thought it was interesting that so many people had mentioned that the peptides I was getting might be bad. And it's possible that I guess I could see a batch, but the fact that I've had 2 cycles in a row that have been difficult, I don't know if that's the case. And especially I thought it gave South Lake, I felt a little bit more credibility in regards to the peptides that I was getting, that this other place, which seems to be extremely reputable, they said, oh, that's actually where we get our peptides from too. So I thought that was kind of interesting about that. So, it's been an interesting journey so far. It's been frustrating. You know, trying to find benefits from the peptides that I have done so far has been difficult because I think that if there's been any benefits, they've been underlying benefits, right? Sometimes I sleep really hard. I wake up and I feel like I haven't moved all night long. And I think that's part of the peptides that have helped. I have pushed more weight over the last 6 or 7 months, especially like the last 3 than I ever have in my life. I realize my numbers aren't a lot for some people, but like I'm, depending on what the exercise is, I'm doing sometimes 3 or 4 plates on some of these. Like, and I never did 45-pound plates. And I've never, well, I mean, technically, I guess it's like each side. So 3 each side or 4 each side. And that's just numbers I've never done before. So I think strength wise, I've definitely seen some, I have not, yeah, isn't that part of like the table, the, what is that called? The periodic table. I've heard of boron. I think my dad used to call me a boron. That's a dumb joke. Yeah, but I haven't seen it in terms of medical anything. I'll have to look at that. Why do you ask? What's the boron thing? I don't know that one. So the fact that I'm pushing around more weight than I ever have before. I think that's, as a 46-year-old guy, the fact I'm pushing around more weight now than I ever have, that I seem to be getting stronger. I think that maybe I could say, okay, maybe some of that's because of the healing properties of the peptides or some of those. I don't know. All I know is I'm pushing more weight than I ever have in my life. So, who knows? Hey, also I mentioned this. So I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism by the same clinic back in 2019. And by the way, this clinic also, they do a bunch of different stuff. And so I didn't take my meds. I told them that back in 2019 that I tried it and I felt like they made me feel weird. I'm not even tried it for very long. But, thyroid medicine changes a lot of stuff. And I didn't take any of that. So one of the things I mentioned in one of my previous videos was how I was concerned that perhaps the reason I wasn't shedding weight like I wanted to was maybe it actually was related to my thyroid. Hypothyroidism can lead to weight gain, absolutely, because you got a bunch of stuff that's trying to slow down in your body because it's reading what your thyroid's doing incorrectly. So I started to do that. I started my meds, and I tell you what, between the TRT and the thyroid medicine, especially when I started the thyroid medicine and the peptides, libido is through the roof. So if we're going to talk about benefits, like, I don't know which one to point the finger at and say that it's the TRT, the peptides, or the thyroid medicine, but things are going pretty good. So that's about that. So anyways, I'm going to end it there because that's right about 30 minutes. This was just a test to kind of go live and see how this whole thing worked, just because I've never actually done it before. I appreciate the 4 of you hanging out. I appreciate Rex, the commentary and watching the videos on the channel. Appreciate that mucho. And that's it. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you on I guess probably the next regular video I do. That's all. Peace out.